Hey everyone, Joshua Kirk here with you once again, and now it's time for my final list video for 2019, which is going to be my top 50 singles of 2019. This is the first time I've done a list like this, so I'm kind of new to sort of sorting out different songs that will make it into the top 50, but I will say I think I have a pretty solid list here. These are the singles that I feel like are the most worth checking out from the very fruitful year for music that was 2019. So without further ado, let's get right to the list. Coming in at number 50 is Travis Scott's Highest in the Room, a kind of catchy and sort of eerie trap banger about a relationship that Travis has had that has recently ended, which kind of makes this, which in that context the song is actually quite dark, even though on surface level it may seem like a pretty straightforward love song. Then at number 49 is Sturgill Simpson with Sing Along. Number 48 is Wilco with the charming and sort of Monkees-esque Everyone Hides. Then at number 47 is the title track from the new Felice Brothers record, Undress. And then at number 46, Blanck Mass with House vs. House. Then at number 45 is Brockhampton with No Halo. Number 44, Denzel Curry with one of the best bangers probably of his career, Ricky. Number 43, Charly Bliss with the very gorgeous, catchy, and heartbreaking lead single from their new record, Young Enough, Capacity. Number 42, Clipping with Nothing Is Safe. And number 41, Angel Olsen with the cathartic, gorgeous, and epic lead single to her new record, All Mirrors, Lark. At number 40, we have Lightning Bolt with the very cleverly named Husker Don't. Number 39, Michael Kiwanuka with You Ain't the Problem. Number 38, Mannequin Pussy with the very kick-ass yet quite a heartbreaking lead single from their new record, Patience, Drunk 2. Then at number 37, a song that I was not really expecting to enjoy, but it actually surprised me, as I think it is one of the best songs probably of her career, especially the 2010s leg of her career, Taylor Swift's Lover. At number 36, we have Freddie, Gibbs, and Madlib with Crime Pays. Number 35, James Blake and Rosalia with a very killer and sexy banger off of Assume Form, Barefoot in the Park. And then at number 34, a harrowing single from Purple Mountains, Margaritas of the Mall. Rest in peace, David Berman, as he was definitely one of the most influential songwriters for indie music. Number 33, Bruce Springsteen with the very beautifully arranged and written title track from his new record, Western Stars. Then at number 32, Danny Brown with the very funny and sort of weird lead single off of his new record, Dirty Laundry. And then at number 31, one of the most emotionally affecting rock songs I've heard all year, from one of my favorite discoveries of the year, Great Grandpa with Digger. Number 30, we have Otoboke Beaver with the very ferocious, sort of frustrated lead single from their record Itacoma Hits. Don't light on my fire, don't light on my fire. And the real intense look on their faces on the cover for the single, I think, only adds to just the downright sort of mayhem they create on this track. Number 29, Tropical Fuckstorm with the title track from their new record, Braindrops, a perfect example of how the Australian experimental rock outfit sound has only gotten that much better across their debut and their new album. Then at number 28, we have Better Oblivion Community Center with the very poetic, catchy, And kind of anthemic lead single from their self-titled record, Dylan Thomas. I think this song is a perfect example of how much incredible chemistry Connor and Phoebe have in terms of their songwriting abilities. Their voices bleed into one another really well. There's also a really good guitar solo at the end, which is some really kind of interesting shredding. Shredding, as I think the song sounds more like kind of Springsteen heartland rock than I would normally expect from Conor Oberst or Phoebe Bridgers. Number 27, Quelle Chris's new record, Gun, certainly had a lot of great singles, but probably my favorite of the singles would have to be Obamacare, which has these really cool, eerie, jangly pianos, some of the most hilarious bars I've heard from Quelle, as like Anthony Fantano has pointed out, and this song is like, it's the perfect balance of like being politically charged and kind of dark, but at the same time also being just a ton of fun too, and definitely one of the standout tracks off of that album. Yeah, and then finally at number 26, Sharon Van Etten with probably one of the best songs for career coming off of her new record, Remind Me Tomorrow. That song is called 17. We've gotten through the bottom half of the list, so now let's go to the top 25 singles of 2019. Yeah! Coming in at number 25, we have the Highwomen, a new country supergroup with Redesigning Women. Really a perfect example of the really cool perspective that these four country singers have on sort of what it is to be a woman. And this album does sort of address some of the stereotypes normally associated with women, how they're the ones that clean up the kitchen and are supposed to look very attractive to men, but in reality they're just so much more than that, and they change their minds like they change their hair color. The song is incredibly catchy, there's some wit to it. Definitely one of the highlights from the, by far, the best country album I've heard this year. Then at number 24, we have Wiki with a nasty banger from his new record, Oofy. That song is called Pesto. Really some of the most aggressive delivery I've heard from him, from his flow to his very kind of animated bars. The beat on the track I think is awesome. It complements his delivery very well. And upon listening to this track, it sort of makes me think, man, it would be really cool if he could collaborate with someone like Slow Tie, as someone on YouTube did point out, because I think he and Slow Tie would have great chemistry with one another. And speaking of Slow Tie, he comes in at number 23 with his collaboration with Skepta. Inglorious, really one of the best hip-hop songs of the year off of a pretty good debut album from certainly one of the more exciting faces in British hip-hop. On this song is essentially an attack on all the things like not great about Britain, and specifically kind of its politics and kind of how it goes through a lot of economic suffering and stuff like that. And stuff like that. I think Slow Tie and Skepta have some great chemistry on here, proving that they are like they're a couple of great rappers from Britain. And I think that I would definitely love to see more collabs with both of these rappers in the future, because they play off of each other in a very impeccable way. And I definitely loved this track and just think it's a complete and total banger. Number 22, on the other hand, is one of the most disturbing things I've probably heard this year, and it is Choo Choo's Pumpkin Attack on Mommy and Daddy, which is off of the album Girl with Basket of Fruit, easily one of the most relentless and harrowing albums I've heard all year, which is saying something given that Choo Choo does have a reputation for being both of those things if you look back at some of their other catalog. But here is essentially this song is as Anthony Fantano said, what it would sound like if someone were attempting to make a club banger from hell, essentially. With the kind of distorted beat and all these weird kind of pitch-shifted voice samples that sort of create all these little mysteries. I still have no idea what the song is about. Is it about like some sort of mentally unstable child who has like fantasies of like murdering people in like his his or her family, or some of his or her friends. It's a pretty unsettling thing to think about, but I definitely think that this track is a perfect example of just how Shushu just have impeccable ability to really kind of induce goosebumps and nightmares in some pretty grotesque kind of ways. And this is definitely the side of them that I think I love from them the most, is the kind of thing they showcase big time on Girl with Basket of Fruit. Then at number 21 we have Bon Iver with his very incredibly sad but beautiful lead single for his new record, I, Hey Ma. This song has really grown on me. The first time I heard it, wasn't that crazy about it, because, I've kind of struggled with Bon Iver in the past, but after a while, it just started to grow on me for some reason, as did the other track that accompanied it, You Man Like, as I found that Bon Iver had really managed to find some greater cohesion in his music, and also better songwriting, too. His singing on the track is incredible. I was very happy to hear more of his raw singing on the new record. I did appreciate his usage of effects and weird stuff, as he does bring that into this new record too, but I just feel after a while the kind of effects and all the weirdness of his last album, after a while, gets a little one-dimensional and a little tedious, so I was definitely quite happy to hear more of his voice unadorned on this album. Coming in number 20, we have Ariana Grande with a very controversial yet pretty banging single, Seven Rings. The track definitely is a perfect example of the improvement that Ariana has made in her music. I mean, from the singing to the very joyous rapping to the braggadocious lyrics. The beat on the track I think is great. I think it does a good job of incorporating the melody from My Favorite Things from The Sound of Music. The song also has some of the catchiest lyrics I've ever heard in one of her songs. It's definitely a complete and total bop. It's a complete and total bop, and I think Ariana Grande has a very bright future ahead of her, and I'm excited to see where her pop music will go in the future. Number 19 is this very epic and ambitious single from Liturgy, God of Love. This album that Liturgy came out with, HAQQ, definitely was one of the more surprising metal records I've heard this year. The way that the band mixes in elements of glitch, hip-hop, and classical into their music, it's not for the metal purist, but I think they definitely made some improvement in that sound to the point of this album being less divisive and polarizing than their 2015 album, The Artwork was. I mean, even their once detractors pretty much, can't deny just how incredible God of Love is. On number 18, we have Matmos with silicone gel implant from their new record, Plastic Anniversary. As the title suggests, the bass line on the track is composed of a sample of a silicone gel breast implant. There's also percussion on the track that sounds like hitting a glass mixing bowl with a drumstick, or maybe a plastic one. There's also some fluttery fake woodwinds on the track that add a little bit of sort of eeriness to the track. The atmosphere and the atmosphere and the way that they mix in all the different samples on this track, I think is fantastic. It's one of the most fun, catchiest songs off of Plastic Anniversary. I mean, the first half of the record definitely is probably Matmos at some of their poppiest to date, while the second half of the record, yes, does delve into kind of darker, more experimental territory. But yeah, it's definitely one of the standouts off of this pretty amazing electronic record. Number 17, any single from Charli XCX's new album could have easily ended up on this list, but, you know, I had to go with this one, Cross You Out, featuring Sky Ferreira. Definitely one of the best tracks on the album. I mean, the chorus on the track. When you're not around, when you're not around, I finally cross you out. It's so anthemic and so cathartic. I feel it every damn time I listen to the song. It's so good. Good. I think Charli and Sky's voices, I think, melt into one another really well in this track. Like in the chorus, I think their verses are great. The beat on the track, the beat on the track certainly has grown on me in the way that it's sort of blended together with Charli and Sky's voices on the track. I mean, this is a perfect example of just such amazing choruses that are pretty much all over Charli's new record. It's a new record. So then at number 16, we have Lana Del Rey with the very beautiful intoxicating lead single from her new record, NFR, The Greatest. This is definitely one of the most critically lauded albums of the year. It was number 1 on quite a few lists. This is the kind of album where, yes, there's going to be arguments about it. You know, this is where the pitchfork comes out, people, but I don't care. I think NFR is Lana Del Rey's best album, and I think The Greatest is certainly one of the highlights from the album. I mean, it is pretty satisfying to hear her say things like, the culture was lit and I had a ball. Yeah, it's actually pretty hilarious, sort of, the way that she discusses kind of her love for the Laurel Canyon sound and sort of old school California. This time around, he like dabbles in nostalgia in a way that's not like obnoxious or kind of annoying like it was on older Del Rey projects. This time around, I think there's a greater sense of self-awareness here, and also Jack Antonoff's production on the track is very lush and grand, and I think really complements her voice really well. So, then at number 15, probably the best dream pop single of the year, or song that I've heard all year, it has to go to Jay Som's Superbike. I mean, this song was the whole reason why I was genuinely looking forward to hearing the new record on Co. In August, because this was an improvement for Melina Duterte and company on all fronts, as I was not really able to enjoy their last album, Everybody Works. But I feel that the songwriting, the mixing is much better. I feel like the singing has a lot more emotional impact to it. Sure, it's still that kind of shy, quiet, introspective voice that we may know from her, but this time around, I think it sounds a lot more affecting this time around as she sings the lyrics. And I love all these strange, different phases the song goes through, especially that shredding guitar solo at the end. And thank goodness all these amazing qualities were a big part of the actual record when it came out. But on the more harrowing, intense front, at number 14, we have the near 10-minute epic from Lingua Ignota called Do You Doubt Me, Traitor? Which I think this is the second track on Caligula, and I feel like this is really the track where really all the terror and brutalness really comes in on this album for me. She opens the song sort of in this very kind of quiet, sort of tense whisper, which...
There's no one in your context matching Wyatt.
Yeah, never mind. That was just my Siri, and... but anyway, she opens the song with this kind of tense, sort of quiet whisper. It's sort of like a monster preparing to let out this like big roar over some kind of tense, bassy pianos. But then she goes into these very blood-curdling screams over some slowly building strings, which is so downright powerful. But then the most sort of unrelenting part of the song is when these layers of noise and percussion come in, and then she sort of, just literally just, scream into her till her guts fall out, essentially. And then, but it's so worth going through all this turmoil, because the ending of the song features some of the most beautiful vocal harmonies I've probably heard all year. It's sort of like this really incredible gothic opera, essentially, going on this track. Then we have, at number 13, on a more sort of poppier front, Dorian Electra's Man to Man, which I will say pretty much all of Dorian Electra's singles from the past couple of years have been incredible. This song, I think, is a really sort of witty statement on how on kind of the beauty of homosexuality, and sort of how it is like, it is not a sin to just love who you love despite what people expect from you. And also the hook on the track of "Man to Man, you gotta let me in." As soon as I heard that song, that hook got stuck in my head instantly, which is why it definitely made its way onto the list. And speaking of poppy songs that have been stuck in my head for a while this year, none probably are quite as apparent as Billie Eilish's "Bad Guy." Really, just like with Dorian, I think all of Billie's singles that she's put out in 2019, I think are all incredible. And this song has turned into my favorite. Beginning of the year, I thought it was "Bury a Friend" that was my favorite song from her, but after the bass line of the song and hearing the song everywhere, it sort of got into my consciousness after a while. There was no way that the song could not make its way onto the list. To make its way on the list. That's the whole reason it's here. I love how the lyrics are kind of funny, but also very dark and kind of demented. And also on that hook that she sings, "I'm the bad guy, duh," which is a pretty funny hook on the track. The way that it's recorded kind of sounds like the musical equivalent to like having my ears kissed. It kind of reminds me of ASMR a little bit. Also, I love how kind of spare the track is. I think the arrangements, though they're very minimal, sound so cool over her voice. And also that trap breakdown at the end is a pretty cool way to end the song too. Then finally, at number 11, number 11 is always the hardest spot for a year-end list, especially when it's the top 50 songs, because, there's a little bit of narrowing down you have to do, but I think it was so worth it, because this song is definitely one of the standout cuts off of the best electronic album of 2019. Anna Meredith's "Inhale, Exhale." Sure, the track is definitely one of the poppier songs off of Fibs. It's definitely not really quite as complex or as patience testing as some of the other songs off of Fibs, but it definitely really does show how well Anna's sound has matured and sort of progressed into greater territory on later projects. projects. I think her singing sounds better than ever on here, especially when she gets into those harmonies and the hook. And the way that she blends together electronics with the live guitars and percussion and whatnot, I think is very impeccably done too. It also does a good job of sort of giving you large bursts of energy, like majority of the tracks off of Fibs do to me. I mean, I don't even have to get on the elliptical. If I want to work out, I just go to Anna Meredith's Fibs for all of that. And it's a lot of fun, too. So that'll do it for my top 50 singles of the year of 2019, minus the top 10. But on New Year's Day, I will share with you the top 10. So stay tuned for that, people.